lot of team analysis, and the wiser football tactics can be, maybe even should be, minimized to trying to get closer to the goal, in order to get a general grasp of them. One team tries to get closer to the goal, the other are trying to stop them from getting there. We know getting the ball into the goal is the ultimate goal in football, no pun intended, and we know we have a better chance of getting it into the goal if we get the ball closer to the goal. But many people overlook, or at least undervalue, this simple fact when discussing a specific concept regarding football tactics. Compactness. It is used a lot, discussed a lot. It is the first single thing I look for when judging managers. The main reason I don't rate most of the purists of football as managers, though I appreciate their creativity and courage to try their way to the ultimate end. Compactness is about having more bodies close to each other in a certain area, less space for the other team to work with. Pressing and blocking lanes become easier when you are compact. Less space, more success with less physical effort. Vertical compactness means having your forward line closer to your defensive line. This is done by dropping the forward line deep by many teams lower in the table, and by pushing defensive line very high by elite teams. Horizontal compactness means narrower formations. This is used where the whole defensive block shifts according to where the ball is. If it's on the right wing, the whole defensive block shifts to the right, and the widest left-sided defender ends up in the box, with the widest right-sided defender pushing up to pressure the ball carrier. Central compactness is the same idea, but for the central areas. I consider it as a must since the considered central areas are the most dangerous ones for the opponent to have the ball in. This is why a well-structured 532-541st block is really frustrating for elite teams to face. It is one of the most centrally crowded formations in football, with 3 CBS and 2/3 midfielders. So, the central area is too crowded to attack it with great efficiency, not just in 5 at the back formations, but in all successful defensive setups. So, what do we do if we can't force the issue through the middle? Where do we attack the opponent? That's where the half spaces come into the picture. Don't let the fancy word keep you away from its simplicity though. Half spaces are important because they are closer to the goal than the flanks, and they are less clustered than the central area. That's it, you get the ball closer to the goal, but also avoid the central defenders that crowd the area that is in front of their goal, the central area. The importance of the half space has also brought some other tactical concepts into a world. It is why the on-ball formations with 5 players in the highest line, like a 235 or a 325, have been getting more and more popular. If you have 5 attackers in your furthest line, you naturally have players in the half spaces. The widest 2 stretches the back line, pins the fullbacks. The center forward occupies and alerts the 2 center backs. The other 2 forwards are naturally in the half spaces where there are more space because of the presence in the other 3 areas. So, let's go back to the 541 we talked about now. It does crowd the central areas, but it also gives you the ability to be more aggressive in defending the half spaces because of the 3 center backs. The wide CBS are able to jump the half space receivers with more conviction because they still have 2 CBS in the box to deal with the central forward per second. Refer to the successes of ultra-aggressive CBS like Rudiger and Romero have had in a back 3. In this example, you can see that the narrow Leicester 4-man midfield block really crowds the central areas to not allow Man City players easy reception close to the box. You can also see that the wide CBs are quite close to City players in the half spaces, and they are ready to jump them on the point of reception, since Evans provides security behind the 2. Also, the Leicester block has shifted to the left, as can be easily seen by looking at the positioning of the 2 widest lay defenders. This idea that gives significance to the half spaces is eventually the same idea that accentuates the importance of needle players. Not that rare of a profile though. Ball retention in congested areas are a tactical plus for every team. It is an advantage just because you have someone on the team that can play their game and keep the team's possession moving, despite how tight the spaces are. Players that have elite first touch, agility, and understanding of space will always be valuable in world football. And they might be getting more important as the physical levels are improving in the world football, so the spaces are getting smaller and smaller. I always give the same example when talking about this concept, but watch 2017-20 Liverpool, with and without Bobby Firmino, and you'll understand what I'm trying to emphasize. Also look at why Liverpool's usage of more technical players in the midfield in Harvey and, partly, Curtis, overlapped with Jota replacing Firmino in the first eye. Harvey/Curtis have much more of a between-the-lines presence than Henderson/Wijnaldum. And Jota has way less than Firmino, obviously. My one pet peeve with needle players is that they are mostly not too mobile, and they are not too willing to do the dirty work off the ball. This is why Firmino is one of my all-time favourite bites, because him on the field means that you have an elite needle player, without having a tactical liability on the defensive side of the game. We've talked about how the width of our furthest line includes but isn't limited to 5-player forward lines, allows us to have players naturally position themselves in the half spaces. We make our team wider to stretch the opponent block horizontally to then find spaces in the half spaces. But the football pitch isn't unidimensional. We can also stretch our opponents with depth. This is where the term runner comes in. The term runner can assume many meanings in various contexts, but in the context of depth, I use it as a player that poses a threat in behind with his movement and physical profile. A pure runner would be someone like Dan James. He is not comfortable when he gets the ball to his feet, since his deficiencies, like his touch and composure, is much more apparent when he is receiving when is more stationary. But when he is running in behind and he receives while running with space in front of him, his exceptional speed, acceleration, and quick strides gives him an edge over defenders. In the other end of the spectrum would be someone like Mata when he plays out wide. His deficiencies in physicality makes him non-viable option to stretch the opponent, but his incredible touch and understanding of space made him one of the best ball-to-feet, between the lines player of his era. Some superstars obviously combine the two to varying degrees, which made them extra special. Players like Hazard, Neymar, Messi, and more obviously, are prime examples of this phenomenon, and they are my favorite players to watch on a football pitch. My main point about depth is that if you lack an effective runner and an effective ball-to-feet player in your front line, you can't have an attack that is around the best of the best. You have to have at least one of each. Look at the best front threes of recent times, and you'll see a balance of these profiles. The reason for this argument is that when everyone drops deep with no one running in behind effectively, the opponent defenders are so much more comfortable to aggressively step out to pressure receivers on their reception point. But also, when there is no one that is effective between the lines, your team can be ineffective against great low blocks. An example of this were at times seen with Liverpool, when they were transitioning from a false 9 Firmino to a more box 9 like Jota. Jota/Salah front three worked very well against most teams, but when they faced some well-drilled compact low blocks, they struggled to generate answers. Less space in behind meant that the team severely needed a needle player that is effective in tight spaces, which that front five, with Robbo and Trent holding width, simply didn't have. So, they turned to hopeful endless crosses from wide which bared no fruit in the end.